Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is? Time for a client lesson update, which happens to be the favorite segment for many of you guys. So if you guys enjoy these, please remember to click like down below. It would be greatly appreciated. But over to the point, let's talk about getting your lifters to understand the importance of their accessory work. Now, a lot of you are going, well, or even most of your people competitive athletes? No, the majority are not, but all my guys want to get really strong. That is a universal trend among every one of my clients, well, guys and girls at this point. They want to get really strong. Same thing. Some of this applies to even people who've hit me up for consultations because I do one hour consultations also through Skype when I have time for people who are interested. I just did one the other day, actually, this weekend, for a guy who is rebuilding. He's a little beat up from being in the military, but he is rebuilding himself, doing 531. But we discussed quite a bit of his supplemental work because that's what he needs. And people need to understand the value of your accessory work and why you have to take them seriously. And getting your lifters to understand that we pick accessory movements for a reason. We don't pick random exercises. Right? We want to pick exercises that make you stronger at your main lifts through hypertrophy. And what do I mean by main lifts? Well, most of my clients run either some sort of linear or undulating linear program, right, for their main lifts, or we do conjugate. Now, main lifts for my conjugate guys are going to be obviously max effort work, dynamic effort work, repetition effort, because those latter two get interchanged depending upon the client, their genetics, their structure, how fast they are, how well they respond to reps versus speed. So when people hear us discuss like the max effort, dynamic effort template, well, that's not universally true. That's not universally true. I have a pretty mixed bag on that. I have clients who do only speed work for that block, right? So they do max work every week and they do 2 days of speed work. And we rotate 3-week pendulum waves of their speed work. I have clients who do not respond that well to speed work, okay, for whatever reason, who need higher training volumes or not, or they're really explosive. They don't need the speed training. They don't benefit from it. Where we do repetition effort, right? We do repetition effort for those blocks. And we do those in 3-week waves and things also. And then I have clients who we rotate the two back and forth. I have clients who do a speed block, then a repetition block, then a speed block, then a repetition block. But we keep the max effort work in there. So the supplemental work is everything else, the stuff that we use to build those up, because I also have less experienced guys who we do 3s and 5s and things for their benching, their squatting. The deadlifting will be a little bit different. I don't usually do that for deadlifts. We do singles. But these are their main exercises. But the main exercises, when you're a novice, is what you get most of your growth off of. As you get more advanced, if you think about it from that perspective, if we're doing triples, if you're doing a 3x3 on the bench or the box squat, you're not getting a lot of muscle growth out of that. You're getting some, but it's not most of your growth. The supplemental work's causing that. Max effort stuff, same. Now, speed work, we're getting a lot more growth. But let's come over to the point. How do we keep those things progressing? Most lifters are not going to maximize their hypertrophy doing a 3x3 or 3x5 when they're no longer a novice on a main lift. My more advanced people, even my intermediates, I have a lot of intermediates on conjugate. So you have several. So even with that, we're not going to maximize their hypertrophy off of doing 1-rep maxes twice a week and doing speed work twice a week. We have to do the supplemental lifts. And you have to get lifters to understand the supplemental lifts are where we grow. Particularly your late novice guys, because they'll get caught up in, man, the programming on this bench, and they're pushing the programming on the bench, and they don't understand that what we're doing, a lot of times we're undulating stuff on the bench press in order to keep overload there, to keep it progressing, to get stronger. But that's not where they're gaining all their size. And sometimes we have to reprogram and adjust. They're not able to progress at the rate that we want on that bench, right? I might run someone who has a system where I run a 3x3, we add a set, So they go 4x3, 5x3, increase the weight. Well, sometimes they start missing. Sometimes they're not strong enough to do that. I've got to reel them the weight back a little bit, maybe take them to a 3x5, 4x5, 5x5. But in the meantime, that's not where they're gaining all their muscle. They're gaining some, but sometimes we have to go back over to the fives just to get more effective volume. But you have to get them to understand the importance of the other stuff. Like in the case of at least one guy who I've just done this with, we're pushing a lot of incline bench. Okay, he's doing a lot of tricep volume, but we're doing tens on the incline bench. Or with Mikey, we get a lot of Mikey's bench press progression, because you guys have seen Mike. We get his bench press progression off of his overhead pressing and his JM presses. Okay? Because a lot of times he's doing triples, and you're not growing much off of a 3x3 on bench. Right? Not growing off that. And for those curious, yeah, Mikey can do triples with 215 on his bench now. And he's up to like 164. He's up another 4 pounds, no visible fat gain. But we get a lot of the muscle growth to fuel that bench progression for him off of the overhead press, because he does a lot of overhead pressing. Off of the JM press, because again, he responds well to it. He likes the lift. So we work on his triceps, we work on his delts, all this other stuff to keep his bench moving. But you will get lifters who don't understand that. They're like, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that with my main lift? Why can't we progress it faster? And they're caught up in their head in the novice mindset that the main lift is where we get everything from. It's not. Okay? It's not. We program around with that stuff to try to keep the strength increasing on those main lifts. But the more and more advanced you get, the more we rely on the auxiliary lifts, supplemental lifts, accessory movements, special exercises, whichever term for the different forms of use people choose to give them. Accessory, I just prefer accessory or supplemental lifts. That's where we get our size. And you have to get them to understand that it's more important that we train those harder the more experience you get. You have to train them harder. They're not optional. You can't skip them. You can't half-ass them. Because that is where we get our size to keep things moving. And the same thing, even if we're using, say, speed work for part of your hypertrophy or repetition work, if we carefully select the right movements. For example, I have a guy right now who's actually a very advanced lifter. His pecs are weak link in his bench. Okay, they're weak link in his bench. We do a lot of floor presses right now. I'll eventually have him rotate in some dumbbell presses, because those are usually my two go-tos depending upon how your gym is set up. But we don't keep those constant. We have to rotate those sometimes for guys who have a pec weakness. So he knows that he has to push that floor press. He's got to progress on the floor press. And if his pecs grow, his repetition work on his bench will go up. His max work on his bench will go up. And that will cause more muscle growth, right? It'll cause the other stuff to grow. Same thing. I've got another advanced guy. Triceps are a weak link, right? We do a lot of closed grip pressing. We do a lot of band press downs for him right now because he needs the band work. But he does a lot of closed grip benching, like 10 sets of it every week. Again, keeping his bench moving forward. But they're more advanced guys, they understand that. Getting your younger guys to understand that that is where we grow is important, and that we have to pick the right exercises. In other words, when we're picking the supplemental lifts, we are picking them for the purpose of maximizing the hypertrophy of the weakest links on your main exercises. And if we don't do that supplemental work and we don't push it hard, your growth and progression is going to be slower on your main exercises. And you're going to stall more often. But it's something that you have to really, really push into the heads of them. And it's largely the fault of people like myself, largely the fault of people like Ripto and other people out there who have taught novices correctly, pushing like your big five, your personal big five, right? In my case, it's always been the squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, rows, right? That's the big five for hypertrophy. And I like chins and pull-ups too, and I push that as another form of big five. That's where we build our base. And it's true, it is for a novice. As you progress more, though, you have to rely more on the supplemental work to keep those moving. Things shift. And it can be difficult to get lifters into that mindset to understand that they need the extra training volume. They need high stimulus to fatigue ratio movements to keep their bigger movements moving by hypertrophying the weak links and hypertrophying them in a way that we can recover from. So a lot of times you will see that. You will see your slightly less experienced lifters will want to put everything into their main exercises. They want to hit them really hard. They want to argue over not progressing them fast enough, or they want to know why they're stalling. But the same guys will sometimes skip their supplemental work on occasion, or they won't push it very hard. And they have to get into that mindset that at a certain point, the more advanced you get, the supplemental work actually contributes a lot more to your results than your main lifts do. Okay, it's the total opposite. For the novice, the main lifts give you everything. As you get a little more advanced, the main lifts give you about half of what you're getting, right? They just feed into the other lifts. For the truly advanced lifter, literally 90% of your results are directly from your supplemental work. And that's just the way that it generally is, the more advanced that you get if you're programming correctly. It's a continual. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.